I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. Soylent Green is people. Hey guys, my name's Gloria and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about a book that I was given free in exchange for an honest review, and I'm going to be brutally honest on it today because I don't want any readers going into it thinking the way that I was thinking and being really disappointed. With this book I was really hoping, I was hoping for an in-depth look at cults. I would have settled for a passing glance at the inner workings of cults. That's just not what you get from this book. It's not about a cult at all, really. Today I'm going to be talking about A Cult Called Freedom House by Stephanie Evelyn. This book just doesn't do what it says on the cover. I'm very interested in cults. I think a lot of people are interested in cults. I've seen every documentary out there that there is. So to hear that there was a horror fiction book that I could read about cults, I was like, fantastic, this is great. And that's not what you get from this book. So a quick synopsis of this book would be that you have a 14-year-old protagonist called Samantha who gets pulled into this cult called Freedom House, typical commune type situation, and there's a detective called Sophia Ray who has her own past issues that has to infiltrate the cult because a lot of young girls from the area have been going missing and they're convinced that they've been taken by this cult. That's it in a nutshell, and it sounds very interesting, but it just doesn't deliver. One of my biggest issues with the book is that the main protagonist is 14. That would be absolutely fine. I'm totally fine with that. Other than she doesn't act like a 14-year-old. She doesn't react like a 14-year-old. No one treats her like a 14-year-old. At times they'll just kind of mention like, oh, you're the youngest person here. Oh, maybe you shouldn't do this because you're 14. But no one actually treats her like a 14-year-old. And I think if you were to go back, delete all the parts where it says 14 and instead put in 19, which is a completely different frame of mind for a person, then the book would make a lot more sense. It was very jarring throughout the entire book. Another thing about this book is I can't actually spoil it for you because all of the descriptions and the back blurb of the book say that Sophia and Cyrus are the only people who are going to survive this. That's true. Sophia is the cop that infiltrates the cult and Cyrus is the guy running the cult, the big I am God kind of person. It's true, they're the only people who survive, so I can't spoil that. And also the very first, I think it's prologue, is the cult eating people. And those are the two things that may have been twists to people, but that's the first things you learn about this book, so can't spoil it. There you go. We're introduced to Samantha because she is living with her single mother who is an alcoholic. She's abusive. She's not being well taken care of, so she's out on the streets making friends with people dealing drugs and stuff, and it's not a great situation for her. You can completely understand why she might get pulled into a cult. Fine. But while she's out on the streets, she meets a guy called Miles, and Miles is one of the right-hand men in the cult. He's very high up and he's come into town to get them supplies, I guess. This is one of my main issues with the cult, is that the way it's described in the book, it doesn't act like a cult. He comes into town and she starts talking to him and his immediate reaction is to be like, no, oh, what do you want to join our cult? Like, oh, you don't want to join our cult. Our cult's not good. Our cult's one of the lesser cults. You don't want anything to do with this cult. She's the one pressing to try and join this cult. No, our cult's terrible. You wouldn't even like it. It's son of a bitch, I'm in. It didn't make any sense. For him to be high up, he should be actively recruiting. People who are high up in cults are master manipulators. They should be able to see that there's a troubled person in front of them that could be led into their cult, but he is like, oh no, this isn't for you. And this isn't the only time we see it either. Once the detective who's going to infiltrate the cult, she goes to almost the exact same spot where Samantha sees Miles, and she meets another guy called Jonas who is also quite high up in the cult, And he does the exact same thing. She pretends to be a battered woman who needs another home for herself, and he's like, oh no, you don't want to join our cult. And it just seemed so bizarre to me, because that's not how cults operate. Miles actually takes Samantha to their house, their commune, just outside of town. He starts to show her around, but the whole time he's like, oh, you don't really want to join us, da 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 da. And there might be some reasons for that, because later on we realise that he's not really into the cult anymore, but it never really felt like he ever was. It also seems like he joined very recently, because you sort of get a glimpse of someone asking his brother where he is, and it seems like he's only been there like a month or two. The fact that he's one of the right hand men of this guy Cyrus, and he's up there doing the top level really bad shit, when he's just apathetic to the whole thing, and he's like, this is bad. He already knows it's bad. That didn't make any sense to me. Why would he be one of the right hand people if he's not even into it, if he doesn't even believe in any of it? And he didn't seem to believe in any of it at all. Another issue with this is that Samantha's brought in and she starts getting shown around, and you get a couple of different POVs, different point of views in the book. Switching between those, I had no idea how much time was actually passing. It felt like she was still on her first day there, like she hadn't even spent a night there, but they were like taking her to the classes, they were showing her their torture methods. At one point, whenever they said, oh, we think you're ready to move to the next level, I was like, hang on a second, is this not still her first day? What is going on? The book is so slim and it moves so quickly that you don't have time to get settled into anything. Nothing is really explained to you, and it's not just show versus tell. I would have been totally fine with tell, but you weren't told anything. It's just she shows up, here's the bad things we do, now you're moving on to the next level, oh by the way it's Judgment Day next week, and it's breakneck speed and it doesn't explain anything. One of the things that I'm interested in about cults are obviously the people who join them. I'm interested in where they live, how they live, and the demographic of the group, and you don't get this. I can tell you how big their plot of land is, how long they've been there. I can tell you how many people are actually in the cult, because at one point it says that they all sleep in one room in Freedom House, this one house, but is that like 5 people? Is that like 20 people? I don't know how old they are. I couldn't even tell you how old Cyrus is, the main guy. It kind of felt like everyone was like in their late 20s or something, but he could be like 40 or 50. Like, you don't really get a sense of the group at all. It just seems to be a random group of people who are all wearing brown pants. Brown pants. I get it. The cult has some kind of uniform. Totally fine. You could have just said they were all wearing brown pants. But no, every single time someone walks into frame, we're told they're wearing brown pants. And I was so sick of that phrase by the end of the book. Like, yes, I get it. We've established that's what they're wearing, but it's repeated far too much. And there's no interest in the psychology of cults. Samantha's brought in and there's no explanation as to what they actually believe. There's sort of a vague thing that they think that most people are walking around like zombies and none of us are paying attention and we all need to be freed, but it isn't explained what we need to be freed from. It's not explained why everyone thinks Cyrus is so great and why they're actually following him and doing the frankly horrific things that they are doing. Like, I don't know if they just specifically targeted people who were already sociopaths, because with no build-up and no gradual decline into madness or anything, the fact that they're just eating people makes no sense to me. Like, it seems like for any tiny infraction of the group's rules, you get eaten, which for anyone who's trying to keep a group together, I mean, you'd be running out of people left, right and centre. Like, I don't understand. It's mentioned that Samantha's the youngest person there, which you don't meet any other teenagers or any other young people, so everyone who's interacting with her seems to be at least 20, maybe 30, and none of them are reacting strangely. None of them are, I mean, the only person who seems to take her under their wing or anything is Miles, but he's also just apathetic, and he's like, you shouldn't really be here, but I'm gonna torture you anyway. So this cult has two torture methods. One of them is pain meditation, which is just going into a room, remembering the people that hurt you, and then getting choked out by another member of the cult. Like, Samantha is taken to her first pain meditation session, and she's like, okay, this is kind of normal, and then all of a sudden she's being choked. She doesn't react. She kind of is confused for a second because it's Miles doing it, but then she's like, oh, that's just how it is here. And then you're moving on and you're in a different perspective, and she's been there 3 months and you're like, what is happening? And then the other method that they use is called pain yoga, and what that is it's yoga. That's what it is. So pain yoga is where you go into a room, they turn off all the lights, which you can just not do it in the dark, who's gonna see you? But they turn off all the lights, and it seemed to be just explained as yoga, or maybe Bikram yoga, the horrible sweaty yoga that they do, but it's still just yoga. They actually say that if the moves get too hard for you, you can just lie on the ground and do child's pose, which, that just sounds like a class you'd pay for on a Wednesday night. Like, that's not enforcing. And of course, 2 seconds into the class starting, a woman called Jodie leaves, and 20 minutes later she's getting cut up for dinner, because clearly any kind of rule breaking here is grounds for getting cannibalized. Like, I don't understand. With their methods of not recruiting, like, I think that this is the only, like, reverse psychology cult in the world where they're asking people not to join and people are scrambling over themselves to join. With their method of non-recruiting and the fact that they eat everyone who annoys them, I don't know how they have any members in this cult at all. It just doesn't, I don't understand it. But wait, there's more! There's 3 parts to this group, 3 levels. There's entrance, compassion, and freedom. That's it. You know, it's not as complicated as Scientology, I'll give them that. But entrance is literally just walking in, saying, hey, I'm here. Well done, you passed. The compassion section is gross. So the compassion section, I mean, I don't know how many men are in this group. So far, there's Cyrus, the head guy, there's Miles, who brings Samantha in, and there's Jonas, who brings the cop in. The rest all seem to be women, which, given what Cyrus is into, I can understand, but I don't know if this happens to the men as well. But the compassion room and the compassion stage are basically just being sexually tortured and groomed for Cyrus's later use. That's pretty much it. And you might think, that's horrible, this 14-year-old girl is going in there to be tortured. That's not really how it's played out. So she's brought in there by Miles, who was told to bring her in by Cyrus, and he's kind of like, oh, you're 14, you shouldn't really be here, I shouldn't be doing this to a 14-year-old. And for no reason, because she's met Cyrus like once or twice and no one has explained what they believe or why he's so great or what he's going to do for them. But she's like, no, I need to be here. I need to do this for Cyrus. I want to be a lover for Cyrus. And you're like, what? Why? What? And nothing, like, it just doesn't make any flipping sense. And he's trying to be like, no, you should try and leave. I can't leave for some reason, but you should try and leave because you're too young for this. And she's like, no, I want that sex toy over there. And that's what happens. There's a big wardrobe full of sex toys and she chooses her own to be tortured with. And none of the actual actions are explained explicitly, thank God. But the next morning she wakes up and she's obviously in a lot of pain, which is horrible. But she's just like, yeah, well, better start my day. And she doesn't have any emotional reactions or anything. I completely understand if things were repressed or if she just didn't want to think about things, but none of that is, it's just like, oh, whatever, didn't happen, who cares? And it's bizarre. And then you have, they're eating dinner and she has food in her mouth and she's told that she's eating Jodie. Like, hey, by the way guys, that's human flesh you're eating. And her reaction is like, oh, weird. And she just keeps eating, and it doesn't, like, what? Any human being, I don't, like, a 14-year-old is not a toddler. You get things. Anyone over the age of like 10 or even younger, if you're told you're eating human flesh, you would freak the hell out. But she just takes it in her stride. Someone else in the group, however, gets sick in their own lap, and just for shock value, because it didn't lend anything to the psychology of this cult or anything. He gets sick in his lap and he's told you can't waste anything, which I guess kind of explains why they eat people, because they're gonna get rid of them and they don't want to waste it. I don't know. But he's given a spoon to eat his own vomit, and then the right hand woman, who I can't even remember what her name is, I think it's like Priscilla or something, she takes a spoon, she starts eating his vomit as well, and that part just seemed like shock value. Like, it was kind of disgusting, but it was just like, oh, I mean, eating vomit it's not eating people. While Samantha's whole thing is going on, cops who just, they don't know how to be cops, they're closing in on this cult. There's no sense of what this cult, what their relationship with the town they live outside of is. They seem to come in for supplies and stuff, but you don't know what anyone else in the town thinks of them. There's been young people disappearing, but without any confirmation whatsoever. These cops have assembled a task force and they're gonna run straight in, and that's just not how you should do things with cults, because things can go wrong, and they do. They actually give the cult a heads up as well, because they go to the door of the house and they're like, this is Samantha, do you know where Samantha is? And they're like, oh no, we've never heard of a Samantha. Because they do actually change her name to Ivy in the book, but I think the author forgot that at times and she still called her Samantha, so I called her Samantha the whole time because I was confused. They give the cult a heads up, so then as soon as the cops leave, they're like, okay, they're coming to get us, Judgment Day's around the corner, let's go, let's get prepared. That leaves Cyrus to take most of the people out into the woods, and that's where they eat some more people. Samantha spends her first night with Cyrus, and with no other changes, with nothing else happening, she suddenly doesn't like him anymore, and she's like, I shouldn't be doing this, he's hurting me. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you should have seen that from day one. I don't understand why you changed your mind now. It's even more confusing that she did change her mind. They decide that Sophia Ray is the person to infiltrate this cult, and she has her own tragic memories of watching her little sister get kidnapped by an ice cream van right in front of her eyes in broad daylight on a street with people, which is a whole other story I'm not going to get into. But that's another thing about this book, is that it's called Sophia Ray Book 1, The Cult of Freedom House. So this entire book is just tragic backstory for this cop. I mean, she's already got a little bit of tragic backstory, but the whole thing is just tragic backstory for her in book 2, I'm assuming. None of it matters because they're all gonna die anyway. So it's all coming to a head. Sophia's back at the house with this guy Jonas who brought her in, and he takes her to the compassion room. They very explicitly state when she's thinking about going in as an undercover cop that undercover cops can in no way have any sexual contact with anyone that they're dealing with. And first of all, I don't think that's true. That doesn't make any sense. Second of all, the first thing she does is just go into the compassion room, because they're trying to speed everything up because they're gonna kill everyone for Judgment Day and freedom. But she doesn't in any way try and get out of it. She doesn't, once she's in there, she doesn't think, oh no, I'm not supposed to do this. She's just like, yeah, this is happening. Oh, this is terrible. And then everything starts to unravel. Comes back to the house, the cops are closing in. They do a whole, it's not drinking the Kool-Aid, but they do it by fire, so they set fire to the place. Of course, Cyrus and Ray are the only people left standing. There's other things that happen in the interim there with Samantha and stuff, but I mean, it's not it's not really that relevant. I just feel like anyone who's ever seen one documentary on a cult would read this and think this isn't how cults work. The whole thing felt like the first draft of a novel, and it felt like it was underwritten. So if this was the first draft, I'd be like, totally cool, you can totally expand on this, you can dive deeper in, maybe change it to a 19-year-old, maybe forget about the whole spoiler thing at the start, just let people read it for themselves, and you can bring it even further and it can be great. But this just felt like a first draft, done and dusted, let's get it out there. Unfortunately, anyone who's going to read a cult called Freedom House and think it's going to be about a cult, you're going to be disappointed. When I'm asked to give an honest review, I'm going to give an honest review. I'm never intending to be mean or discouraging to the writer, but certain things when it comes to story and when it comes to wanting people to spend hours reading your work, you have to meet them halfway. You have to get the basics right at least. And I think there's definitely potential for this writer in the future. She just needs a few more edits and she needs a few more drafts, and then it would be great. So if you like my video, subscribe down below, leave a comment, let me know if you've read Cult of Freedom House. What did you think of it? Am I wrong? Did I just not understand things? Did I not read things properly? Please let me know. If you have anything that you think you can explain to me about this book, just let me know. I will take things on board. Yeah, I'll be back soon with another video, and if you have any recommendations for fiction novels that involve cults, that get a little bit more into the psychology of cults, then please let me know, because I'd love to read more fiction about cults, or even non-fiction as well. I'll see you in the next video.